If you enjoy vertical video like this, but don't want it interrupting your long-form horizontal viewing time, then I'm right there with you. Shorts have their place, but that place isn't here. That's why I've made a new dedicated space for shorts, Mini Science of Loud, where you can find short and vertical videos created by me. So if you're interested in phone-viewable, doom-scrollable, popcorn content to while away your existence, then head over to Mini Science of Loud. What are you waiting for? Oh yeah, the video you actually clicked on. I'll just get out of here. In a world of plugins and digital modelling offering convenience to guitarists, it's becoming all too easy to fall into the trap of sounding like everyone else. When everyone is using the same algorithms and everything is repeatable and mix ready right out of the box, it doesn't leave a lot of room for the chaos, unpredictability and experimentation that can lead to more interesting and memorable guitar tones. Homogeneity isn't inevitable. Imperfection is a virtue, and nasty, gritty, hairy guitar tones have far more application than many give them credit for. When crafting your own memorable sound, it's important that your tone has teeth. No apps, no screens, no downloads. Laney's Lionheart Foundry Supertop takes the classic analog design approach of Laney's flagship valve amplifiers and implements the same topology into a solid-state amp that is affordable for just about any guitarist. This isn't some super sculpted modern metal generic sound maker. This is an amplifier that bites. Laney might be an iconic British amplifier brand, but I've only just managed to get my foot in the door with them on a professional level. Laney are distributed here in the UK by Headstock Distribution, who are also responsible for getting Ibanez, Damasio and a number of other brands into music shops all over Britain. I was down in Birmingham in January visiting their facility, trying out new and unreleased products and attempting to further my business relations so that I can finally feature in my videos the best of what Laney and Ibanez have to offer. I don't intend to bore you with how the YouTube sausage gets made, but it's been a long and sometimes confrontational road to get to this point. While down at Headstock, I got to play through a little blue Lionheart combo amp with one of the new Ibanez AZ standard guitars. Not only was I entirely bamboozled when I realised that both of these were priced considerably cheaper than I had assumed from playing them, but the sounds and response intrigued me for being something different. So after months of asking and negotiation, I finally got Headstock to ship me up the latest Lionheart Foundry head and an Ibanez AZ standard in violin burst, so I can recreate that bamboozling experience in the comfort of my home studio. And by the end of this video, if you're interested in either of these, you'll find links to the featured products in the description below. The LF Supertop is something of a classic style British voiced amplifier. It has two channels, clean and lead, with a boost that can be engaged on either channel. There are a number of switches and controls for manipulating the EQ at differing points throughout the gain staging. This is an amplifier with grit and spit to its gain structure and can sound thick, dark and hairy one moment, or cutting bright and crunchy the next. With 120 watts RMS output power, it's more than loud enough to rock the stage alongside drums and bass. And being switchable down to less than 1 watt for home use, you can get all of that tone without the neighbours banging on the walls. XLR direct outs paired with Laney's advanced impulse responses also make this a convenient home recording amp, giving baked-in 412 or 112 cabinet emulation as well as the much needed ability to turn it off so that we can use our own selection of cab IRs in our DAWs. It's an analogue solid-state amplifier working off the same topology and circuit design as Laney's valve amplifiers, something we've thankfully been seeing more from amplifier companies of late. Solid-state amplification has some very distinct advantages over both valve and digital options, but those advantages can only really be exploited if companies are willing to give transistors their proper consideration and respect, not simply churning out op-amp based practice amplifiers for as cheap as possible. Being a long-time valve amp user, what I really like about these solid-state amps, both this Laney and the Orange Baby amps I demonstrated in a live band context recently, is how quick they respond. There's an incredibly fast response time to transistors that makes the amplifiers feel very tight and precise when playing them. This is something quite unique to solid state, as most valve amps have a little more slack in them. There's a looseness and bloom to the response which makes them feel a certain way. One isn't better than the other necessarily, but being very familiar with the feel of valve amps, it's been a hugely exciting experience to play these solid state amps and feel how responsive they are in the low end especially. They feel immediate and accurate. This Laney isn't super high gain. It's actually very reserved, but that's absolutely to its advantage. The dedicated boost, alongside the lead channel and its bright dark switch, affords a lot of distortion stacking and gain staging opportunities. It's not just one distortion sound in here. Driving the boost hard into the lead channel can get really nasty in a way only solid state can, but if you want to really get nuts, the way to do it is to keep the boost and gain settings at a reasonable crunch, and then launch another gain stage in front of the amp. Stacking the lead channel with a tube screamer or super overdrive gives a very different sound to stacking with the internal boost, and when all three are active, you better be prepared for this lion to roar. But again, we're not talking super sculpted and pretty distortion. This gets hairy and gritty in all of the ways that a lot of the biggest sounding guitar tones often are, spreading tendrils in all frequency directions. Toothsome tones that spit in your face and sound massive because they're not saturated 5150 high gain. This will do all your blues stuff too. Edge of breakup and textured leads, as that's probably what this was designed for, but who really gives a fuck about all of that? I've paired the Supertop with an Ibanez AZ Standard, the more budget-friendly version of Ibanez's modern performance Superstrat. If you've always been put off Ibanez by the thin neck, 80s shred stick vibe of the RGs, then this is designed specifically to counteract all of your objections. A satin smooth, palm-filling roasted maple neck and 24 stainless steel frets. Locking tuners on a less pointy headstock, and twin humbuckers with a 10-tone switching system for a multitude of tonal variety, with a body shape and colour scheme that doesn't scream spandex and hairspray. It's a rock-solid player's guitar, which isn't trying to be any one style and is content to be understated and let your playing do the talking. The RRP on the LF Supertop is $329, and the AZ comes in at $449. These two together cost less than 800 quid, making them an incredibly reasonable mid-range rig. Throw a couple of £100 at a few pedals, cables and whatever, and for around £1,000 you've got a fully fledged setup that will handle low volume bedroom practice, home recording and even kill some ears at stage volume during a live show. And with potentially 120 watts of clean power behind the Supertop, it would even make for an excellent power amp platform for your HX Stomp or similar digital effects processor if you wanted to go down that route. I'm going to be focusing on the low power mode in this video, investigating the tones you can expect from the 1 watt bedroom practice and home recording mode. I think it's pretty fair to say that this LF Supertop in 120 watt mode is more than capable of getting gig loud without me having to rent a venue and put together a band to prove it. I'll be running the LF Supertop through my Imperial 112 cabinet to monitor the sound in my room, and I'll capture that with a Sennheiser E906 microphone. Capturing the sound of a cabinet off a microphone is absolutely the best way to get something unique that isn't straight out of the same preset pack that everyone else is using. I'll also be taking a direct signal to my recording interface via the XLR out, and utilising Laney's advanced impulse responses in the amp to emulate the cabinet. This gives me a choice of 412, 112 or turned off, which would allow me to apply any IR of my choice in post. But I'm going to be using the inbuilt 412 emulation, and we'll see just how well that sits in a mix. I'll have an Ibanez tube screamer out front to see how well this handles being boosted by a common overdrive pedal, and to test out the effects loop, I've got the Difference engine from Black Country Customs. This is Laney's pedal division, and the Difference engine is a programmable digital delay. And of course, the guitar I'll be using is the Ibanez AZ Standard. This will by no means be a holistic analysis of every pickup selection, every knob position, and every sound available from this setup. I'm just going to represent a few sounds I think show off the gain structure of the amp and the ways that I might see myself using something like this. Once we've all heard the sounds, let's meet back here for some post-game analysis. perfectly honest, I found this amplifier to be a little challenging, but that's certainly more of a criticism of me than it is of Laney. This amplifier is just full of sounds that I'm not familiar with using, but I could hear qualities that I liked. I was trying to get this amplifier to fit my purposes rather than meeting it where it was, but that's kinda how a lot of my favourite classic guitar tones came into being. The LF Supertop has that very classic amplifier distortion thing, where the sound gets darker and thicker the more gain gets applied. The low end softens out, and if you want to get into proper hard rock territory, you need a little bit of assistance from an additional gain stage. But the gain texture really works, especially in a mix, to catch the listener's ear and latch on without blending into the background. I used the LAIR 412 emulation for the mix track, and it does exactly the job it needs to. That lead tone was the gain on 10, the boost on 7, and a Boss Super Overdrive feeding it, and it still remained clear and precise despite the aggressive gain staging. I didn't even need to use a noise gate. Even with all that distortion, the noise floor was still low enough that it wasn't a problem, and I wasn't fighting feedback. Although, that might change if I took it off of the 1 watt mode and got full power and real volume involved. I almost wish it was more chaotic, but it's absolutely in its best interest that it isn't. This is an amplifier that will keep you tonally in line. It won't let you overdo the gain, and it's a good reminder that the best dirty guitar tones are always a little cleaner than you think they should be. It's got an old school British voicing, mirrored by the red, white and blue colour scheme in proportions that remind me of an RAF rondel. I wonder if that was intentional. I've barely touched on the fact this has a clean channel, a digital spring reverb, as well as a chorus and vibrato built in, all of which can be engaged and disengaged with a foot switch. It's a hell of a lot of amplifier for 329 beans, and while there is a little bit of the solid states about the sound, not quite reaching the same vibrance and liveliness as my much more expensive valve amplifiers, it's really hard to complain about these sounds and these features at this price. If you are looking for something higher gain, more aggressive and tonally sculpted for a metal application, Laney have the Ironheart amps within their Foundry series, which might be worth a look. But for everyone else who is looking for a bit of bite to their drive sounds without breaking the bank, see if your local guitar store has one of these Laney LF Supertops you can take for a test run. Anyway, I think I've been talking long enough. If you are interested in any of the products featured in this video, you will find relevant links in the description below. That's all for now. Keep it loud. Stay safe.